Fisherman and His Soul. English summary story. Every day, a man went fishing. Sometimes he sold the fish he caught. Some days, he didn't catch much and couldn't sell any. One day, his net felt really heavy. He joked, wondering if he caught all the fish or some monster. He thought of giving whatever he caught to the queen. He struggled to pull the net into his boat but found no fish, only a small mermaid. She was asleep with yellow hair, a white body like ivory, a silvery pearl tail, and seashell-like ears. She was very beautiful. The man pulled her closer and hugged her. When she woke up and felt his touch, she got scared and begged to be released. She explained she was the Sea King's daughter, alone and worried about her father. He agreed to let her go but asked for a promise. He wanted her to sing for him when he called, believing it would bring him luck in fishing. She agreed in return for her freedom. Each evening, he called her, and she sang songs of the sea. Dolphins circled her, seagulls flew above, and even fish listened to her songs. He caught many fish when she sang. But as time passed, he fell in love with her voice. One day, he asked her to marry him. However, she said he had a human soul, and she could only love him if he gave it up. Confused, he decided he didn't need a soul if he couldn't see or touch it. He declared he'd send it away to be with her forever. But he didn't know how. In distress, he sought help from a priest, confessing his love for a mermaid but being unable to marry her because of his soul. The young fisherman was troubled. He questioned the importance of his soul, unable to understand its significance as he couldn't see, touch, or know it. Seeking guidance, he approached a priest, asking how to let go of his soul. The priest was alarmed, emphasizing the preciousness of the soul, likening it to all the world's gold. He warned against such thoughts, calling them sinful. The fisherman was distraught, expressing his desire to live like the mystical beings of the sea, feeling drawn to their carefree existence. He loved the mermaid but couldn't reconcile it with his soul. The priest grew agitated, condemning the sea creatures as lost beings, incapable of understanding right from wrong. He warned the fisherman of damnation if he pursued the mermaid. Heartbroken, the fisherman sought to sell his soul in the marketplace, tired of something he couldn't comprehend. But the merchants found his offer absurd, valuing a false coin more than a soul. This puzzled him, contradicting the priest's earlier words. Distressed and confused, he remembered a young witch known for her magic. Rushing to her cave, he hoped she could help, though unsure of what he truly needed. She offered various magical solutions for a price, but he hesitated, troubled by the priest's warnings. The young fisherman, feeling mocked by the merchants, sought help from the witch, willing to pay any price for a solution. He asked the witch to help him send away his soul, which startled her. She warned him of the grave consequences but agreed to help for a cost. He offered gold, his belongings, and even his home and boat. The witch, with promises of her master's vast riches, asked him to dance with her in a secret place at sunset. She spoke of changing leaves to gold and the moon's light to silver, promising to aid him. She whispered about a special night on the mountain, instructing him to hit a dog with a stick, avoid speaking to an owl, and wait for her under a tree during the full moon. The fisherman, eager for a solution, left happily, praising the witch. Meanwhile, the witch, consumed by jealousy, burned a plant angrily, longing to possess him. When the night arrived, the fisherman followed the witch's instructions on the mountain, encountering strange events: a calling owl, a fleeing dog, and the arrival of the witches in the sky. Amidst them appeared the young witch in a beautiful dress, and they danced in the moonlight, swirling around joyfully. As the dancers heard the sound of a galloping horse without seeing it, fear struck the fisherman. A man in elegant attire watched them, and when the fisherman called upon God's name, the witches vanished, and the man disappeared. The witch with red hair, captured by the fisherman, begged him not to ask about the secret. When threatened, she revealed that the fisherman's soul was the secret and gave him a knife, explaining that shadows were the bodies of souls. She instructed him to cut his shadow while facing the moon to release his soul. Trembling, the fisherman went to the beach and faced the moon, contemplating freeing his soul. His soul pleaded not to be cast away without a heart, but the fisherman was determined. He cut his shadow, creating a figure resembling himself. Despite his soul's pleas, he refused, wanting to love the mermaid without a heart. Eventually, his soul agreed to an annual meeting, possibly needed in the future. After parting with his soul, the young fisherman met the little mermaid in the sea, sharing a kiss. Meanwhile, the soul, watching their departure, walked away sorrowfully. A year later, the fisherman's soul called out to him by the sea. The fisherman emerged and listened to the soul's experiences. The soul narrated its journey to the east, encountering various tribes and lands. It traveled with merchants, battled unique tribes like the Magadi, Lac Troy, and Sibians, and visited the city of Alal. Tired of the city, the soul sought to meet the city's god but was informed that the god was hunting in a forest, leaving the soul curious about which forest. The fisherman wanted to meet the god in the temple. The priest took him to 3 rooms. In the first room, there was an idol covered in blood, but the fisherman wasn't convinced. He made the priest's hand better and demanded to see the real god. In the second room, there was a beautiful idol adorned with jewels, but the fisherman doubted it too. He made the priest's eyes better but still demanded to see the true god. In the third room, there was only a mirror. The priest claimed it was the mirror of wisdom, showing everything except the viewer's face. The fisherman checked the mirror and, finding it true, did something unusual but unimportant. He left the mirror in a valley nearby. The soul wanted to re-enter the fisherman to offer wisdom, but the fisherman preferred love. The soul walked away sadly. He traveled 6 days to the city of Ashtar. He saw the city on the morning of the 7th day. The city was like a bazaar, wonderful in its splendor. Merchants sat on silk carpets, selling strange perfumes from the islands of the Indian Sea and the oil of red roses. Others sold fantastic jewelry made with tiger claws in gold and leopard claws in gold. The people offered all kinds of fruit, purple things, yellow melons, white grapes, red gold oranges, and oval lemons of green gold. He saw an elephant stopping to eat oranges, and the people laughed. They exhibited peculiar behavior, buying a bird in a cage when happy and releasing it to be happier. When sad, they would hit their bodies with thorns to feel even sadder. On the feast of the new moon, the emperor emerged from his palace and entered the mosque to pray. The people covered their faces, but he showed no form of respect. That night, the guards of the emperor came for him and escorted him into the palace. They walked through a great court and entered a beautiful garden. At the end of the garden stood a pavilion. The captain of the guard instructed him to enter. The young emperor lay on a bed of lion skins, holding a falcon, while a Nubian stood behind him with a large scimitar of steel on a table. When the emperor saw him, he was alarmed and inquired about his identity. He gestured toward the scimitar, and the Nubian struck him violently. However, it did not cause any harm, terrifying the Nubian, who fled. The emperor attempted to harm him with a lance and an arrow, but both failed. Perplexed, the emperor asked if he was a prophet or the son of a prophet and requested him to leave the city that night. He demanded half of the emperor's treasure before leaving. Reluctantly, the emperor escorted him to a large room, which led to a corridor and a granite door. Inside was a dazzling array of huge tortoise shells filled with pearls and other stunning jewels. When the emperor offered him half the treasure to leave, he declined, expressing interest only in the little ring. The emperor protested, calling it a valueless lead ring, but he persisted, claiming it to be the ring of riches. Fearing the consequences, the emperor offered all the treasure, including his share, if he left the city. He did something peculiar but insignificant and placed the ring of riches in a cave reachable in a day's journey. He emphasized that the ring's owner would be richer than all the kings of the world. However, the young fisherman insisted that love was better than riches, affirming the little mermaid's love for him. But the soul countered, asserting that nothing was superior to riches. After 3 years, the soul beckoned the young fisherman once more. Sitting by the sea, the soul expressed a desire to talk, recounting a mesmerizing experience from an inn near a river. As a musician played a mesmerizing tune, a veiled girl danced with ethereal grace, her bare feet moving elegantly on a carpet. This description reminded the fisherman of the little mermaid's plight, stirring his longing to reunite with her. Fueled by this yearning, the fisherman walked ashore. The soul, merging back into him, cast a shadow on the sand, symbolizing their unity and journey together. Traveling, they arrived at a city, hopeful that it might hold traces of the Little Mermaid. However, despite their hopes, the city didn't seem to be where she danced. In their quest, they encountered events that troubled the fisherman deeply. The soul prompted actions like taking a silver cup and hitting a child, actions that troubled the fisherman's conscience. Despite his discomfort, the soul urged patience and calmness, suggesting that perhaps the final city held the answers they sought. As they ventured through the streets, the anticipated inn by the river eluded them. Feeling despondent, the fisherman contemplated leaving, but the soul advised caution, suspecting possible dangers lurking outside. Their decision led them to sit in the marketplace, where a merchant approached them, possibly heralding a new turn in their journey. The young fisherman, unable to find accommodation, encountered a merchant in the closed marketplace who offered him hospitality. Initially grateful, the fisherman accepted the merchant's generosity and retired for the night. But his repose was interrupted when his soul prompted him to commit a heinous act, to kill the merchant and take his gold. Moved by the urging of his soul, the fisherman entered the merchant's room, contemplating theft and murder. Yet, as he approached, the merchant awoke, bewildered by the fisherman's intentions. Under the influence of his soul's insistence, the fisherman struck the merchant, seized the gold, and fled the city. Regret and guilt gnawed at the fisherman's conscience as he realized the gravity of his actions. Distraught, he confronted his soul, expressing disgust and resentment for the wicked deeds committed under its influence. The soul defended itself, arguing that it lacked a heart and had learned these malevolent actions from the fisherman. Rejecting the soul's persuasion, the fisherman discarded the gold, attempting to sever ties with this corrupting force. In desperation, he sought to rid himself of his soul, but the magic that bound them prevented its departure. The soul declared its eternal presence as punishment for their shared misdeeds. Determined to atone for his transgressions, the fisherman resolved to return to the bay, seeking solace and forgiveness from the little mermaid. Yet, his attempt to reunite with her met with disappointment as she remained absent. Despite the soul's mockery and tempting offers of pleasure, the fisherman chose a solitary life, hoping for redemption. Despite his unwavering love, the young fisherman's calls for the little mermaid went unanswered. His soul, acknowledging the supremacy of the fisherman's love over its temptations, sought to sway him through altruism. It proposed helping those in need, highlighting the omnipresence of pain in the world. Yet, the fisherman's love remained steadfast, unmoved by these attempts. Even as years passed, the fisherman's devotion never waned. His daily calls to the sea for his love's return went unheard. The soul, admitting defeat, pledged not to tempt him further but sought re-entry into the fisherman's heart, only to find it overflowing with love, leaving no room. Tragedy struck when a mournful cry from the sea drew the fisherman's attention. Rushing to the shore, he found the lifeless body of the little mermaid. Beside her, he poured out his heart, confessing his inner turmoil and sorrow, kissing her lifeless lips, filled with bittersweet joy and profound pain. As the sea encroached, threatening to engulf them, the fisherman chose death over forsaking his love. The moment his heart shattered from love's intensity, his soul entered, and the sea claimed them both. The priest, aiming to bless the sea, discovered the fisherman and the little mermaid's lifeless embrace. Denouncing the sea's blessing due to the fisherman's abandonment of God for love, the priest saw their tragic demise as divine punishment. In an unmarked corner of the fuller's field, the villagers buried the bodies of the young fisherman and the little mermaid without any sign. The plot remained barren, void of any growth, and no fragrant herbs adorned the area. 3 years later, on a holy day, the priest entered the chapel to address the congregation about God's wrath. Yet, he discovered a peculiar sight: an altar adorned with strange and beautiful flowers emitting a sweet perfume. Surprisingly, instead of speaking about God's anger, he found himself inspired to preach about God's love. This unexpected change moved the people to tears, leaving the priest bewildered by his own words and the inexplicable beauty of the flowers. Curious about the origin of these flowers, the priest inquired, learning they sprouted from the corner of the fuller's field where the bodies were laid to rest. Struck by this revelation, the priest was moved to pray fervently. The following morning, the priest led a procession comprising monks, musicians, and villagers to the beach. He blessed the sea, its inhabitants, the forest's smallest creatures, and all living things in God's world. The people rejoiced in this act. Subsequently, the sea's inhabitants departed to another part of the ocean, never to return. The mysterious and transformative beauty of the flowers from the gravesite seemed to have brought about a change, leading to an unexplained departure and a newfound sense of blessing and peace.